Mr. President, this week we will begin consideration of the National Defense Authorization Act, the annual legislation to authorize funding for our military and national defense. This year's legislation builds on last year's bill with its emphasis on restoring military readiness and ensuring that we are prepared to meet threats from major powers like China and Russia. Some may take it for granted that we have the strongest military in the world, but our military strength, built on the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, requires sustained investment. In recent years, budgetary impasses paired with increased operational demands have left our armed forces with manpower deficits and under-equipped for confronting the threats of the 21st century. Given the multitude of threats around the world, we cannot afford to become complacent or to ease our preparedness. The truth is, the last time that our military underwent a comprehensive modernization, Ronald Reagan was president. In November 2018, the bipartisan National Defense Strategy Commission released a report warning that our readiness has eroded to the point where we might struggle to win a war against a major power like Russia or China. And the Commission noted that we would be especially vulnerable if we were ever called on to fight a war on two fronts. Repairing this readiness deficit has to be one of Congress's most important priorities. Last year's National Defense Authorization Act took major steps forward on modernization, making significant and targeted investments in the research, manpower, and materiel needed to equip our military to face 21st century threats. We've made real progress, but there is a lot more work to be done. This year's National Defense Authorization Act focuses on building on the progress we've made. It invests in the planes, combat vehicles, and ships of the future, including the Joint Strike Fighter and the future B-21 bomber, which will be based at Ellsworth Air Force Base in my home state of South Dakota. It authorizes funding for research and development in advanced technology. It authorizes funds to modernize our nuclear arsenal to maximize our deterrence capabilities. It also focuses on ensuring that we are equipped to meet threats on new fronts, including in the space and cyber domains. It's important that we invest in these new areas of the battlefield to ensure that we are prepared to meet and defeat threats. We are once again in an era of great power competition, where states like China and Russia harbor imperial ambitions. The National Defense Authorization Act will help ensure that we have a credible deterrence and are equipped to meet threats from great powers as well as rogue states and terrorist organizations. This legislation will also invest in our relationships with key allies and security partners to help counter shared threats. And importantly, this NDAA will help our military bases rebound from recent natural disasters. Finally, of course, this legislation will invest in our most important resource, our troops, and in their families. This year's National Defense Authorization Act authorizes a 3.1% pay increase for our troops, the largest increase in almost a decade. They more than deserve it, and an increase is important for recruitment and retention in our all-volunteer force when the economy is as strong as it is. The bill also focuses on addressing the recent significant health and safety issues faced by many families with private on-base housing. And it contains measures to support military spouses seeking employment and increase access to child care on military installations. It also allows parental leave to be taken in multiple increments, better adapting to the lives of our war fighters. Mr. President, in his first annual address to Congress, George Washington noted, and I quote, "To be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving peace," end quote. There is no better way to preserve peace and to protect our nation than to ensure that the United States military is the best equipped, most capable fighting force in the world. I look forward to working with my colleagues to pass the National Defense Authorization Act and to give our military men and women the tools that they need to defend our country.